Welcome everybody to Catfish Weekly, presented by Whiskerware Apparel, along with Chuck Davis, and I'm Lyle Stokes, and I would like to welcome for the first time as a co-host on the show, Tim Doc Lange. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Lyle. Hey, Chuck.
Man, we are so glad to have you on here. I think that the third party, getting the third guy back on the show, will make it better for more content, and something that we hadn't really told a lot of people about is we're going to have a section during the end of the show where we're going to have tips and tricks that you're going to share with everybody, and we'll try to do that every week, and that ought to be a really bunch of fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think we're going to have, I'm just going to make them little short things. It's probably things that people already know, but for those that don't, it may help them out with something.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, Chuck and I was talking before you come on the show about bait wells and live wells, and we need to dedicate a show to that one of these nights, and I know you'd be a great help with that. Another thing that we need to talk about is correct way to measure fish. We just have a whole bunch of subjects, and we've been trying to get Jason Bridges on with us to do a safety show. But if we can't get Jason, I know he's terribly busy this time of year, maybe we can get in here and do one of those amongst us, or pick up Chris Jones or somebody to help us out with it. But we really need to do a show on safety. I think that we should do a show on safety at least once every year.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially with
even if it's
wearing the life jackets and stuff like that. I just went to the inflatable PFD, and now I don't, because I'm getting older, and I just don't want to fall off that boat, and so I want to make sure I wear it. So I just
absolutely.
went to
We went to those a couple of years ago, and there's for a couple of obvious reasons. I have severe shoulder damage, and I'm not supposed to be doing well. I can't lift my left arm over my head. And Cindy has bunches and bunches of knee surgeries and a replacement stuff. She can't swim. So if one of us get in the water, we got to have a way to get the other one out. And I think those inflatables are something. They've come down in price. They're not uncomfortable like some of the older ones are. And a safety show, I think, is something that we need to get in the works. What do you think about that, Chuck?
Yes, man. That's something we have to do. And I think the winter safety is a little bit more important because of the survival rate in the cold water. And that needs to be going over too, even if we do it in the spring. But, I think, on around Christmas, and go over the cold water safety also. I think, it should be, it's about mandatory for me to have life vest on all the time during the winter, because you never know what's going to happen. You got a lot of clothes on, they get heavy, and you're ready to get pulled under. It's hard to get pulled back in the boat. Just so much can go wrong.
Well, we have a what do you call it, step thing that we have from another boat, from our old boat, and I think that I'm going to start carrying that in everything. That way, if you got to throw a rope to whoever, if somebody gets in the water, you're going to have to get a rope to them and get them pulled up to the boat, because we're always in current. And if you can get them around to the stair, it's just a plastic hang-on stair, they can get back in the boat, because let's face it, these boats that everybody's getting are bigger and better and this and that, and the bigger and better they are, the harder they are to get in and out of.
Right.
So, well, we'll work on that and get that all set up. Welcome to the show, Doc. Tonight, everybody, we are lucky enough to be able to have Bobby Wright and Bill Reno from the Arizona Catfish Association on the show with us tonight, and I'm sure I've done that wrong, but you can straighten us out. Bobby, thank you guys so much for being on the show. You have done a show with us down at the Catfish Convention, and we had a lot of audio difficulties and stuff, so thank you guys for coming on the show, and we're going to go over a bunch of stuff we talked about then and some new stuff.
Thank you very much for having us. Pretty glad to be here this evening.
you guys are doing a lot of great things down there for catfish conservation, and you all do a bunch of tournaments, and you have an outstanding number of members and a bunch of guys that show up for your tournaments. But I want you, before we get done tonight, because I'm going to let the other guys ask you some questions, I want to know how you're catching all them giant flatheads out there in the Wild Wild West.
Well, we started off with fishing in the water, and we use a lot of bait. But no, it's you know, after meeting you guys and spending a little bit of time with the Tennessee River monsters and fishing Watts Bar Lake back there for a couple hours, you know, the techniques and the strategies are dynamically different. You know, you guys are fishing with a lot of cut bait, and a lot of us out here fishing with live bait, bigger sunfish and bluegill, and upwards of, you know, pound or two carp. Got to talking with a lot of guys back there, and you know, a lot of us out here are using our main boats to get us in the general vicinity of where we want to fish, and then using kayaks and using larger reels with spooled up with, you know, hundreds of yards of line to cover more area. We fish a lot of landlocked, pretty much reservoirs that aren't really, they're not really maintained as a fishery as much as they're maintained as a reservoir. So, you know, there's so much about it that's different. You know, so much that's the same, but so much that's different at the same time.
Most all our fishing at night too. I mean, that was another glaring difference. Is most all of those big flatheads, 90% of them are all caught in the middle of the night.
I seen some of those fish you caught down there with Scott Manning, and they was outstanding. That was great fish.
Yeah, he kind of knocked this Arizona boy's expectations out of the water. I was just happy to get out and get on a foreign waterway, and yeah, and Bryce was one of the guys the guy that took us out with Captain Scott, and yeah, he put us on 9 fish that went 255 pounds. So definitely a surprise from Arizona boy.
Bryce definitely.
I can't imagine. I can't imagine anybody not enjoying that. You know, and flatheads, they're the king of cats. So
yeah.
Well, listen, guys, let's get started with it. Chuck, are you ready to see what these guys are all about down in Arizona?
Oh yeah, I'm ready. Welcome, Reno. Welcome, Bobby. How y'all doing today?
Good, Chuck. How about you?
Good, good. Have y'all been at it this year already?
I actually spent Thursday night, Friday night. Yeah, I was able to get a few to the boat, but we got a couple of the boat.
Awesome. Have y'all started your tournaments yet?
We had the first tournament of the year was actually 2 weeks ago at one of the local lakes here, Lake Pleasant. It's normally it's an early tournament. Bait's really tough. So we had 44 guys. Went for 3 days and 2 nights. I think the winning fish was a tiny fish in our standards, and the first time a channel catfish has ever taken first place in one of our tournaments, it was a 9.3-pound channel cat that ended up taking the event. So
Shocking.
Great. So y'all don't let Chris Joshua and Flathead Ed fish with y'all, do you?
As a matter of fact, they fished the same boat. They both fished the tournament. And they both fished on the same boat, and I'll probably catch some flack for this, but I didn't see either one of them. Actually, they were at Sunday's weigh-in, but they both they were both waving the old skunk flag. They both weren't lucky enough to get on any.
I think they both caught bait that was bigger than the fish that was weighed in. I think I heard that. They both caught some carp that were in the 7, 8, 9, 10-pound range.
Yeah, I've seen Flathead Ed. He goes big or goes home. From what I've seen, he likes those large flatheads.
Yeah, he's spending upwards of 40, 45 weekends a year on the water, and he's definitely putting his time in. So yeah, he's got the flathead number for sure.
Great. So on on your participants, is it most of the guys, are they in john boats or pontoons or runabouts? What kind of mixtures do y'all have out there on the type of vessels used for y'all's tournaments?
I'd say a good 50% of them are pretty well equipped pontoon boats, and then you've got a mixture of fish and ski and runabouts, and your standard 20-foot fiberglass boat, and then you've got you've definitely got the class of smaller boats that run in the events. So plus we allow shore fishermen in our events too. So we've got a lot of guys that don't even have the access to boats and are using kayaks or rafts or whatever to run baits out. So
Cool. I mean, how does that how's that been working out for y'all, allowing shore fishermen and vessel fishermen in the same tournament?
it's actually haven't had any issues at all. You know, we've got a pretty well established set of rules. You know, a very good group of guys that fish our events, and you know, we're polygraphing first through third, so it's kind of a real good deterrent for anybody that's out there fishing that has a chance to even think about, you know, maybe doing something that's against the rules. You know, if they come in with a placing fish, they're gonna be hooked up and have a polygraph done. You know, and it's kind of one of those things that keeping the integrity of the club's name and keeping the integrity of the tournament's name and our names that we just we choose to go with the polygraph. But at the same time, we've kind of tried to keep this definitely a community event with families and wives and kids, and so we didn't, at least I didn't feel like you know, making it a vessel only or a boat only event. So I mean, we've seen overwhelming success with every aspect of it, you know.
So
few tournaments, the shore fishermen have placed in the top 5 every tournament.
That channel cat that won the last tournament was actually caught offshore.
Yeah, they do really well, actually.
yeah, you know, a lot of tournaments, especially when the bite's really tough, and you see yourself sitting on fish for, you know, long amount of time. You know, that's the advantage they got. You know, sitting there keeping that bait out there in the same spot. You know, and the guys in the vessels, they'll just pick up and move around a lot, which the shore fishermen don't have. You know, aren't able to do that. Do you allow them to get in the car and drive to a different spot or anything, or do they have to stay in the same spot on the bank? How does that work?
No, they're all the shore fishermen, because of the way our local game and fish department works. Another thing that's dynamically different is you're not allowed to transport any live bait or live fish in the state of Arizona. So I have to obtain, as the tournament director, I have to obtain a special permit for our shorebound guys to be able to move around throughout the lake. But they're given a set of boundaries when they receive the permit, and they have to stay within those boundaries. But you know, we're fishing just pretty much dammed up mountain ways. You know, big valleys that have been filled up with water and used for the city's reservoir system. So, you know, most of the stuff we're fishing, you can stand on one side. So we've had pretty good success with the way we're doing it up to this point.
Are most of your reservoirs out there, are they mapped with Navionics and the other type cars? Do you have that advantage to be able to do your research before you fish?
Oh yeah, yeah. You can buy the carts for the majority of the lakes. I know I've got them for the lakes that I fish. I've got them in my fish for my electronics. But yeah, they are available.
Cool. So the bank guys, they can download the Navionics app on their phone, and they'll know what the the structure's like and the ledges and stuff in the area they're fishing, instead of just having no idea what's out in front of them like the good old days.
Absolutely, yeah, and an overwhelming majority of people are using kayaks that have electronics on the kayaks. So, they're not just running baits out to where they think. They're placing baits with precision, dropping them down through the water column and placing them at the structure or whatever they think the fish is going to fight. So they might not have the ability to cover the large amount of area that a guy in a boat can, but they can definitely, that's one of the advantages of running 300 or 400 yards of line on one of your reels, is you can run a bait out 350 yards and pull it back to you every 10 minutes, reel it in 20 feet or so, and you start covering some serious ground that way.
Yeah, that's I was watching the guys, seeing a lot of their photos when Team USA went over to compete in Europe, and they were bank fishing at the time, and that's how they were doing. They had kayaks that would bring their their bait out, and the anglers would tell them, tell the kayak, to the left more, out more, drop it right there. So the angler is able to communicate with the kayak, even though he's not part of the team, and is able to tell them exactly where they want them to drop the bait. So, that I don't. Y'all are probably one of the only tournament trails that I've actually heard of that is allowing bank fishermen. It seems like it's working out pretty good for y'all.
Yeah, I can't think of one event in 7 years that we've been doing this, that I've been doing it, and probably going on a good 4.5 years that the club's been doing it. I can't think of one placing in any event that's been contested. We might have had our issues with a guy suspected of using too many poles here and there, but I haven't had any issues with anything arising from a shore fishing standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking, having everybody, the vessels and the bank fishermen competing against each other instead of having two separate classes of entries, and being able to have a very competitive, event like that. It seems like, the bank fishermen say, hey, it's not fair, they're in boats and they can get to better places. But it just seems like, hey, if you want to enter it and fish from the bank, that's your prerogative. So you can't gripe about it because you're willing to pay the entry and do it. So it seems like it's working out and they're holding their own.
Absolutely, yeah. The second annual Flat Cat Classic was actually won by a 64.2 pound flathead that was caught offshore, and everything checked out on that one. So yeah, it's things are so different than what you guys fish back there. It's I'd say it's definitely not the norm for us to move spots, let alone multiple spots a night. I myself, I have done it. It's usually more of a neighboring situation, not more than chasing the fish. But then again, we don't have running water other than a couple times a year. When the water's running, a lot of us definitely chase the fish that time. But for the most part, I'd say most of us stake a spot out and call it home for the evening.
When on the lakes around here, our lakes are probably, we've got some that, well, most of them on the Tennessee River, except for Wilson, are like 60 miles long. And believe it or not, it's very hard to find a place to bank fish. I mean, you can research, you can go up under a bridge here and there or fish from a park pier. Well, most parks don't even allow you to fish from the boating piers. But, it's places like that, is really places you would expect to do really good. So, do y'all have like most of your bank where you can have access to fish mostly all the way around these reservoirs from the bank?
The interesting thing about our reservoirs is they fluctuate in level so much because all they are is reservoirs to hold irrigation water. So it's not uncommon from the high to the low to range 45, 50-foot difference. And so, it all depends on how full the reservoir is, how much shore space there is, and how accessible it is. Obviously, when the lakes are lower, there's tons of shore space. But when the lakes are full, we run into the exact same problem that you have on the Tennessee River there, that there's not very many places that are accessible. So it just depends, and the water is controlled by an agency that, they don't really care about fish. They only care about, where the water is and when it's needed and how much it's going to cost to get it where they need it to be.
Right. So that's about the only time the bank fishermen don't have that type of advantage is when you're at full pool and they have a hard time to get into the places that they would like to fish.
Yep.
But any other time they got just as good an advantage as anybody else. Scott Woody, do you guys do any drifting or do you primarily just anchor for flatheads? Did y'all get that, guys?
Yep.
Scott Woody has a question. Do you guys do any drifting, or do you primarily just anchor for flatheads?
I'd say I've heard a lot of talk of drifting, but nobody that I know drifts much of it all. it's pretty much just anchoring and fishing that way, either suspended or casting or running your baits out from there.
I guess the only really drifting we do is fishing with balloons and letting the balloons blow in the wind a little bit, but there's hardly little or no current in our lakes at all. So any drift fishing that would be done with the balloon and just letting a little bit of a breeze take that balloon across the surface of the water. That would be the equivalent of our drift fishing.
I got you. Yeah. Is there any guys that usually just go out and only target channel cats, or do most guys go out and target flatheads only?
The overwhelming majority target flatheads. With the flat cat class event, there is a separate category for channels, and I know of 15 or 20 guys that come out and just target the channel cat category for that event. But there's still the overwhelming majority of us are going for the top tier. We're going for the flatheads. Plus the size differential from a channel to a flathead here is astronomical. I mean.
All right, guys. Well, it was great meeting y'all in person, and I hope y'all get to come out for the 2nd annual Catfish Conference. And I'm so glad y'all got a chance to get out and do some fishing in this area. It seemed like y'all had a great time. So I'm going to pass you on to Doc, and it's been great talking with y'all.
All right, thanks, Chuck. Nice meeting you out there as well, and we'll definitely be at the 2nd annual.
Hey, Bobby and Bill. How you doing?
Good, sir. How are you?
Very good.
Good. Jerry Dillard does have a question here. He wants to know, how long has the ACCA been holding catfish tournaments?
The ACCA has been holding the club event since 2013.
Okay.
We're still a club. I myself have been running events since 2011.
Okay. I've got a few questions here. What is your bait of choice out there? What do you mainly use for bait?
If it was up to me, I would pick a 1-pound carp or a bluegill about the size of your hand. Those would be my 2 optimal baits.
Okay.
I'd have to agree with that.
And where are you guys hooking them at?
Right. Pretty much, if I'm using a pound or a bigger carp, I'll go with a 10-aught king-tail right behind the back fin, and then I'll go with usually an 8 or a 9-aught treble just in the flesh and the side of the face as a stinger. That's usually when we're using bigger baits.
Yeah, and you're just using enough weight to allow them to be mobile and move around a little bit.
Yeah, I usually use about a 6-ounce weight on a pound or a 2-pound carp, just enough to. It all depends on what kind of rig you're fishing. Some guys fish Carolina. My rig of choice is a 3-way rig, basically with a big peg float or a big styrofoam float on it to keep the bait vertical in the water column, and I'll peg it to the ground with a 6-ounce weight and give them a 2-foot leader to go out there and dance around all night and call him Mr. Big for me.
Yeah, ringing the dinner bell for him.
There you go.
Now, are most of your lakes are they flood control lakes, or are they man-made, or what are they?
They're man-made, dammed up water reservoirs. Really, it's we're the desert. We've been in a I think like a 13 or a 14-year drought, but we still the way that the SRP and some of the different agencies that are responsible for controlling the water, they kind of funnel all the snow melt and all the rainwater from up north into a couple reservoirs, basically is what they are, that hold water, and they switch from different reservoirs different time of the year depending on the water need that the valley has. So they're all dammed up. Basically, they found a low point of a mountain range and built a dam up in front of it and filled her up with water.
Did they leave any structure when they built them, or did they just plow it all off?
No, it's all structure. I mean, we're fishing. Some of the rock piles are 30, 40 foot tall. It's just gigantic boulders stacked up, and the geographical or the topographical terrain that we're fishing it's pretty amazing, especially from a catfishing standpoint. There's definitely lots of nooks and crannies and structure piles, and it's fun.
A lot of wood, or just mainly rocks?
Mainly rocks. when they do drain one reservoir into another, you'll get the water flow that comes down through the river, and it'll strip out trees and bring brush with it, and you can fish log jams and stuff like that, but rarely do they flow like that, and you know, sometimes they don't stay together all year long. So I'd say most of the time we're fishing rock structure.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Good. So yeah, that was my next question, and you just answered. Oh, you guys are fishing mainly? Are you day, night, or you guys are mainly night fishermen, aren't you?
We're bait fishing by day and catfishing by night.
Yeah, and I'm the opposite. I get my baits during the night and fish during the day for flatheads.
Yeah, we went out. Like I said, I went out last Thursday and Friday, and you fish for bait. Depending on how they're biting, you know, they're just now starting to turn on this year. So we spent a good 7 hours to get 6 bluegill and I think 6 carp. So you know, we can't stop at the bait store and buy bait. You know, we can't transport anything other than little baby minnows. So you've almost got to be a proficient bait fisherman to be a successful flathead fisherman in this.
Yeah. Sometimes I think we spend more time trying to catch bait than we do trying to catch a fish that we're targeting.
Absolutely.
That's the truth.
Yeah. Now, what time do your tournaments start and what time do your tournaments end?
Really, the structure right now is we've been going with a 3-day, 2-night event. So all the tournaments right now, they start at 4 p.m. on Friday. We have first weigh-in is from 10 to 11 on Saturday. And we have a final weigh-in from 9 to 10 on Sunday.
Oh, so, wow. Okay. So you guys are doing Ironman tournaments.
Ironman, yeah, pretty much. You know, it's just the way we fish back here. You know, when we were back there with those boys, if we had the waterways and the resources that you guys have back there, I'm sure we'd be fishing a lot less and a little more convenient. But we've got what we have to work with, so you know
yeah.
The typical trip. Go ahead.
I used to fish like that. Now that I'm an old man, I got to have my sleep. But I know what you're doing. I've done them Ironman tournaments before.
Well, yeah, that's where the big pontoon boats come in handy. You know, some of these guys have got full beds on their boats, and you know, Flathead Ed's got a camouflage lazy boy, and he's got a water mister and a hand wash station, and he's just. Some of them take it to the next level, but it's you know, it's not unlike any of us to spend 3, 4, 5, 7 nights consecutive on the water. You know, we get out there at any given weekend. There's between 10 and 30 guys out there, so it's you know, you always know when somebody's out there. You'll find a beach with 30 boats on it, and somebody's cooking breakfast or somebody's cooking lunch.
That's what I'm talking about right there.
Oh, yeah. We all bring.
Most of the lakes that you guys are fishing, how big are they? How many acres are we talking of water?
I'll let Bill get on Mr. Google or SRP's water report here. I know Bartlett, like one of the most popular lakes here in the state that most of us fish is, I'd say from the dam to about as far as most of us fish is probably 11 miles. But that's a meandering canyon and going back and around cuts and stuff like that. So I'd say a good 10 or 11 miles long maybe, and at its widest point, maybe 3/4 or maybe a mile wide.
Oh, cool. All right.
Lake Pleasant's a lot bigger. I don't want to take a guess on how long that is. If I had, I'd say probably 15 miles or so long, but that's just a guess.
Yeah, so plenty of places to fish and plenty of places for them guys to hide that you're trying to find the fish.
Yeah, it looks like Bartlett, which is a lake that we all fish a lot, looks like it's about 105,000 acre-feet.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I don't know if that gives you a better idea. And then Lake Pleasant, I would say, is probably 5 or 6 times that size, so maybe 600,000 or 700,000 acre-feet.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, appreciate you guys being on the show.
No problem. Appreciate you guys having us. Enjoyed it.
Your turn, Lyle.
All right, guys. I want to talk to you all about the tournaments that you have out there and the size of turnouts that you guys are having. I mean, Bobby, I think we talked about this down in the at the conference, but you know, you have outstanding numbers show up to these tournaments out there.
Yeah, I think last year we had 198 registered. The Flat Cat Classic, which is the one that's coming up here in a month, that's been the most popular event. Some of the other ones are getting close to it, but it's been the most popular. We've had some guys fishing from Texas, Oklahoma, California. Yeah, we got Morgan and Anthony that come out faithfully every year from California. And if they're watching, what's up, guys? See you in a couple weeks. But yeah, we've had amazing success with what we're doing out here, and it's been pretty cool to see it.
It's growing every year like crazy. Every one of our tournaments have grown by 30-40% every year.
What do you attribute that to, guys?
Social media. I think it's all about Facebook and our website. I mean, our website gets crazy traffic, the week before a tournament, and I think Facebook is the best way that we've been able to share information about our tournaments and get the word out there. And you share it, or your friend shares it, and the whole chain just goes. And people we would never have exposure to through social media and the word of mouth are hearing about these tournaments and getting involved.
Well, and I think another key point is nobody that organizes or helps put on these tournaments fishes in the events. We have a set of rules that we stick by, we stand by, whether it's a good friend of mine, whether it's my brother, or whether it's somebody I've never met. My main goal from day one has been keeping the reputation of this club and then my name and the name of the tournament. So, we try to everything to be cut and dry. We make people sign off that they've read the rules, and we just try to keep it a fair and honest event. And I think people appreciate that, and I think they keep coming back year after year because we stand by what we say we're going to do, and we try our damnedest to do it.
I have to tell you, with some of the tournament directors out way east of you, picking favorites and not standing by rules that they have wrote themselves to do it correctly is a big part of why you guys' success rate is where it is. Jody Harrison would like to know what you guys doing for keeping fish alive, and how do you keep your bait alive out there in the heat you all have?
The bait is definitely a chore. In mid-August or mid-July when we've got 118 degrees outside and the surface temperature and the first 5 foot of the water columns in the upper 90s. Most of us use circulating live well pumps, direct drawing out of the lake and constant flow through our holding tanks. I've been known, a lot of guys are, you pull a fish out of 15 feet of water, put it right back in a basket, and sink it right back down to 15 feet of water for your bait anyways. As far as as handling and keeping a large fish, that's one of the reasons we run 2 weigh-ins. So we're not asking people to hold them very long. I do still allow the use of decoy bags, only because I've had tremendous amount of success using them. We haven't had any dead loss that I'm aware of by using them. And most guys carry gigantic totes on their boat that they keep everything, including the kitchen sink, in until right after they land their fish, and they dump everything on the floor and fill it up, and now that becomes their main chore for the night, is keeping that fish good till weigh-in the next morning.
We've had great luck using the bags, the weigh slings from Bottom Dwellers Tackle. David's been amazing. Every time I talk to him, he just comments how many weigh slings he keeps sending to Arizona. He says that Arizona is leading the nation in weigh slings because they're just great. They're great for the shore fishermen. They can go out there and put the catfish in 5 or 6 feet of water and be able to suspend it off the side of my boat, or if I want to drop it down 20 feet into some cooler water with a higher oxygen level. Those weigh slings are amazing.
So you actually put the fish in the weigh sling, fasten the top of it up, and lower it down into the water to keep it cool and get the most oxygen it can get.
Oh, I put that fish in the weigh sling, and I put 3 zip ties across the top of it, so that fish, it's not going to get out of there. And then I drop it as far as I can get it.
Now,
That's different. I've never heard that.
that's a new one for me. Do you guys do you have to add any weight to that to get it to go down?
Oh yeah, you gotta put a good size anchor on the bottom of it to keep it down. You don't want to around down in there, but we had a lot of eyes turn when we brought up the decoy bags when we were back at the convention and talking with a lot of guys. And the thing I kept trying to explain was we're dealing with extreme water temperatures and extreme heat temperatures, and so to be trying to handle a 110 quart cooler full of frozen water bottles, or to expect to keep a fish that you just pulled out of 25 alive pumping water from the surface is not really feasible. So that's why we still do allow the catfish slings and the decoy bags so these guys can catch these fish, take care of them properly, and get them right back down, into the depth of water that they were caught in, and hold them, and straight to weigh in as soon as they can get their vessel weigh in.
Well, that's a great idea. I have never thought about that. Of course, we have big live wells and stuff, and I believe that the hottest tournament that I ever fished was, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years ago. We was up in Louisiana, Missouri. It was 108 at weigh-in, and everybody's fish survived except one guy's, and they wasn't real big, but I think his live well pump had quit that day, and he found people that at the weigh-in that would take the fish, and he disqualified himself, which was the honorable thing to do and the right thing to do. But very seldom do any of us lose fish simply because we're set up for that. But that is the neatest trick that I've heard of in a long time, is putting them things in Dave's weigh slings and lower them in the water. That's just an outstanding idea, and I got to tell you, I think coming out there would be a ton of fun. I'd love to do it, but when it's 118, this old fat man ain't coming out there. I'm going to tell you that right now.
We can get all you got to do is bring a set of trunks and jump in the water every 30 minutes.
There you go.
Well, I'll tell you, I have a really good friend of mine. That day I was telling you about, it was 108 here at weigh-in. Daryl Gibbler fished that tournament by himself. His son had to work. They usually fish together. And Daryl got so hot that he pulled up on a sandbar and got down underneath the side of his boat in the shade and laid there in the water to cool off. When he come in to weigh his fish in, I thought that he was in bad shape, and he probably wasn't as good as what he was, but he said he'd have never made it if he hadn't got down in there, and he's older than I am, so he said if he hadn't gotten that water to cool down, he said he didn't think he could make it that day. So I can only imagine what a 118-degree day on the water would be like. That's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Jerry Dillard would like to know how hot the water temperatures get out there in a hot part of the summer.
I've seen 97, 98 on my fish finder before up in the shallows. It's main lake. What we consider main lake, it's towards the deeper part of the lake where you've got 150-foot deep holes. You might see, when I see 98, 97 upriver and 10 feet, the main lake temperature might be 89, 87, somewhere in there. Some of it depends if they open one of the dams, or if they're letting water in and water out at the same time. You get the flow through the bottom, and it'll churn up, and you'll get a little bit of fluctuating temperatures. But I'd say 98, 97, somewhere right in there, which makes fish care definitely your top priority when you're.
But once you get down below that, once you get down 6 foot or so,
you get down,
it cools off exponentially.
Yeah.
Right. We have another question in our chat. Jody Harrison would like to know, does anyone use oxygen out your way when in those temperatures? And if they do, how does that work?
You know what? We went to the Catfish conference, and since then, I've been to the doctor. I have a prescription for medical oxygen, and I'm putting it in my live well. I don't know anybody else is doing it, but I'm going to do it at the next tournament.
Yeah, I think that might be one of the solutions to our bait issues in the dead of summer, is getting some, the diffusers that they had showed us, that it's just stuff that we had never seen. We weren't aware of it, and somebody had a nice little display and kind of gave us the ins and outs of it. And I think I think here in the next couple months, Arizona's probably going to be on its way to using a lot of oxygen, especially in the dead of summer.
I was on the phone with bottom dwellers again today for probably 45 minutes, going over exactly how to build it, what I needed to do, and the right regulator, and right air stones, and it's in the works.
Well, I have a couple of medical bottles. There's really no need to have medical quality oxygen. You will be just fine with regular oxygen from acetylene place. But I do have the medical bottles, and what we do, of course, you have to learn your situation. But I just turn it on the regulator on the lowest setting and just let her sit there run. The trick to oxygen, in my opinion, and Doc, you correct me if I'm wrong here, but is not how much you get in there, because you can get too much in there. The thing is getting it broke down into the smallest bubbles that you can make it happen with, and the fish will be so happy when they go in there, and they'll be wild as a March hare when you pull them out.
Yeah, that's a trick. Just keeping the bubbles small, get them as fine as you can get them, and then just keep it at the lowest heading, 1 to 2 liters an hour. That's plenty enough for them. Just keep it on, and that does a real good job on it.
Yeah, a lot of the guys are using, going to the scuba shops and getting their oxygens and tanks and stuff there also. You get the diffusers from, Fish Life, other places like that, bottom dwellers, but, getting your oxygen, the scuba shops is a really good place to get, and from what I understand, the prices are really reasonable also.
We'll keep you posted. Trying it in 1 month.
Are they comparable, Chuck, to acetylene places? Like cut and torch places?
The size bottle that we had on our table at the conference, Paul Strauss went and got his bottle that size. I think it cost him $3 or $4 to fill up at the scuba shop. And that's the only place that he could find that he wanted to keep the blue bottle because of the sponsorship that he has with Fish Life. And that's one of the only places he could find that would actually fill the bottle without exchange. So he went that route, and it was $4 to fill it. So
that's cheap enough.
Yeah, it's very well.
But guys,
what a lot of guys are going to do is, Jody had talked about, just getting the large tank at home and transferring to your small tank before every tournament, and you make sure you're topped off and you're ready to roll, so you won't run out, in the middle of the day, especially if you catch early. You've got enough to last the whole tournament for sure.
Vince Nagowski just said the same thing in the chat, that he's going to get a full-size welding tank bottle and just transfer it over, and fill it every time. Jerry Dillard says that you guys out there in Arizona don't have the market cornered on jumping in the water. They do that down in Texas, where it gets hot down there too.
Yeah, we've got to figure something out. I think we're all working. We're kind of waiting for Mr. Bill here to get his oxygen tank figured out and see what he's going to get going with that. And I think that might be the missing link to our chain here. So,
well, we'd like to know how that works out when you get that done, Bill. If you contact me, or maybe we get you back on the show to tell us how it works out. If it doesn't, why you don't think it worked out, but I'm sure that it will. And let us know how that works, because you guys are, like Jerry, you're in extreme conditions compared to a lot of us. In my area, we have extreme current. In your area, you have extreme heat. I guess we've all got a little some kind of a deal that goes on, but when you're talking about 118-degree temperature, if that oxygen can make a big difference, especially on your bait, that'll be a major deal for you guys.
Yeah.
There's hoping.
Yeah, heck yeah. I'd like to hear how it works out for you, if you wouldn't mind letting us know, because I think that's a great way to go.
And here's another point. That Catfish conference brought these guys information. That's one of the big things about it. They needed information. They found it, and it was at the Catfish conference.
That's exactly right.
So heads up to Steve Douglas and Jeff Jones, because, there was a lot of information that was shared there that that I didn't even pick up until I was there, and you guys didn't even pick up. So that's cool.
There's a lot of it we don't know about that went on. There's some guys back there talking that if the rest of us knew what they was talking about, because some of them guys that was talking with each other, they shouldn't have been allowed to talk to each other. They're already too hard to handle at these tournaments.
Yeah.
Bobby Vargas says to make sure that you don't get any grease or oil in your regulators, it'll blow them up. And I agree with that. It doesn't take much to upset them. They're pretty. What's the word I'm looking for here? They can be messed with pretty easy.
I own my own welding company, and I'd have to agree with that last comment. Anything petroleum, anything compressed is a no. So good point there, whoever made that comment.
Yeah, Bobby Vargas. He evidently has run into that issue before, and I know I have. And when we had to shop and had cutting torches and stuff there, it doesn't take very much oil to mess them regulators up. They just can't stand it.
Yeah, and they also say, when you're installing your valves and everything, don't use any kind of Teflon tapes or anything, because when you thread them down in, that will also break loose and can do damage. So that the brass fittings seal good enough themselves, so don't use any kind of additives on the threads at all.
Most of your brass fittings should be a tapered fit, so I agree with that. Yeah, you shouldn't need much of anything on there. Just cinch it down and good to go.
Right, and even the ones that go straight into the bottle, I tightened it down, and there's no way it's going to leak.
Nope. No, sir.
I'm excited.
198 boats in a tournament. That may be the biggest ever that I've heard of.
Well, it's 198 boats. It's not 198 boats. After talking with you and talking with Bridges and a couple other guys, we're not running 198 boats. We don't really run a team event. I also allow multiple guys on a one boat, so I don't have the same structure that they do. So after getting back and talking with a couple people, I'd say we're definitely up there, but I didn't have 198 boats, so I just wanted to click that.
Okay. You had 198 entries.
Yes.
Okay, that's still an outstanding number.
For the middle of the
outstanding
not
number.
bad at all. Yeah, for the middle of the desert, that's an accomplishment.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right. I always thought of Arizona up until the last few years when social media got so big and everybody from out your way started posting pictures and stuff about those big flatheads you guys catching. The only reason I ever seem to go to Arizona is go out there elk hunting, but now I don't do any of that any longer, so I'm thinking that flatheads would be a definite reason for me to be there. But if it's going to be 118 degrees, I'm going to tell you right now, it'd be winter when I come out.
Well, I tell you, we definitely do a lot of winter fishing out here too, Lyle. So, any of you guys want to come out?
It never freezes up, does it?
No.
It never freezes up, does it? Yeah.
Not at all.
I didn't figure that it probably did.
No,
so you guys basically fish year round.
All year round. Yes, sir.
Man.
Does the bite slow down in the winter? Do they slightly go dormant? Does the bite slow down during the deepest part of winter, or is it on all winter?
It's crazy, like November, early December, and then about just before Christmas, it really, really slows down until, mid-February.
Yeah. Do y'all get that YouTube sensation Chris Flores out there to fish with y'all?
No, I don't believe so. No, we haven't yet.
He hadn't been out to visit y'all?
Yet, no. We'd like to have anybody that wants to come out, so.
Yeah, I didn't know how far he was. He's New Mexico, I believe.
Oh, he was at the Catfish committee. He was at the conference. I actually did meet him.
Right.
No, we haven't had a chance to get him out here yet. Maybe we'll work on that for next year.
Yeah,
he's watching.
He fishes those
him
little
and his daughter
irrigation.
go out there.
Yeah, they fish those irrigation canals and all that, and some really sharp stuff that he does.
Yeah.
Doc, we might have to figure that out.
It's totally different than what you're used to. From what everybody thought. It was shocking, the glaring difference as we talked to people at the conference, and everybody was exchanging tips and giving pointers. All the different seminars that were going on, Bobby and Mike and I just looked at each other thinking, none of this applies to us. We're totally in a whole different category and a totally different.
So y'all were saying you could not transport fish or bait. So all of your bait has to be caught out of the lake that you're fishing in?
That is correct.
Other than tiny minnows, we're only allowed to transport tiny minnows
And water dogs.
and water dogs.
Okay, so do y'all let the guys go out and catch bait before the tournaments, or is that done after the tournament starts?
No, they're allowed to catch bait whenever they want to. They can catch bait all the way up. The only thing we start registration. I used to do a pre-registration, but now we start registration at 10 a.m. the Friday of the event. So they can even come out that Monday and fish for bait 4 nights or however long they want. Yeah, as long as they're not fishing for catfish or try to weigh in one that was caught during that time, which we've got the polygraph in place, so we try to cover all bases that way.
Great. So y'all, but having 3 polygraphs, that really has to take a toll on the money going to your trail. So what does that end up costing y'all per event for having 3
$600.
How much?
$600 a tournament.
So yeah, he charges you $200 per team.
Yep.
That's pretty reasonable.
It is. That's a great price. Most places is almost that for one.
$500-$600 just for one.
Right.
Yeah, depend on who's doing it, what type of machine they have, and how new it is. There's a lot of variables, but the cheapest I found was like $450. And so we just put them on a retainer deal, and if there was a problem, then we called them and we'll get them in like on a Monday. But you have to tie up everything with them. But if you got a guy that'll do 3 of them for $600, that's a steal in that game.
It is. I mean, people pray that nobody fails one because they have to end up paying for 2 because you've got to give second place one if first place. And
that's right.
You'll go in the hole. At 80%. That right there. $1,200.
Well, a lot of these little small tournaments, they can't survive doing that now. A bigger tournament, they can kind of go along with it because they got different structuring on sponsorships and monies and different things. But these small trails, so many of them, they have to do it like we did because there's no way that you can have a guy sitting there and do it and come out. A lot of times you lose money. And a lot of the participants in these tournaments, they don't understand that. But being on that end of it for a long time, I do understand it. And it doesn't take much to lose money in a tournament. We lost money in several of them. If cold front moves through or bad weather moves through, and you go ahead and have the tournament, and by the time you get done, you've lost money on it. But you got to do it because you said you was going to. So,
right.
But yeah, you really have to be cautious with stuff like that.
Yeah, especially the tournaments that leave themselves wide open for it. I mean, they have to give them because, when you're trailering and no live well checks and all that good stuff, you've got to, totally got to, give a darn. I think they ought to get first, second, and third because even if these guys, don't win, you're still if a guy cheated and got second or third place, they're still, taking people's money and not doing it right. So
well, from my perspective, if they're in the money, they should be tested, but you just can't afford to do that.
Right.
You really can't. If they play 20 places, the top 20 teams should be tested. But I don't know how you'd ever afford it. And I've thought that somebody could scrounge up the money and do that. He could make a pretty good living just doing fishing tournaments.
Oh, he could. Yes. It's very hard to go to these tournaments and knowing people was able to go out on the water at 4:30 and drop their baits at 6:30, and even if they don't win, you're thinking, God, somebody's not doing it right,
That's
and
right.
they're getting away with it. You know, and some guys probably hope they don't win. You know, if they're not doing it right. So, you know, that's just, I guess, the gentleman's agreement. You just hope everybody's playing by the rules and everything.
They have to. Well, Bobby and Bill, thank you guys so much for being on the show with us tonight. It was great having you guys on there and learning about how the different things you do out in Arizona is from what we do out here. And I had a great time with you at the conference. I wish that audio hadn't stripped out on us, but you know, things happen sometimes when you're doing live shows. And this I hope this kind of backs up some of the people that wanted to see you on here, and you guys are doing wonderful things out there, and congratulations on your tournaments, and I hope to continue to see it grow. I know there's a lot of guys on Facebook that are a member of your organization out there, and they just think it's the greatest thing in the world, and I am quite sure that it is, and we just can't thank you enough for being here with us tonight.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and if any of your listeners have any questions or want to learn more about the Arizona Catfish Conservation Association, or the ACCA as we call it, our website is www.catfishaz.com.
All right, thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.
Yep, I appreciate nice meeting Chuck and Lyle at the event, and we'll meet you sometime, hopefully at the second annual conference.
Well, you know, when we get down there, you guys try to make take time out, because I've already talked to Steve. We're supposed to be doing another live event out of there next year, so you guys make sure you come around, and we'll talk about some more of that by then. You know, and like I said, we've already had guys in chat ask us, we wanted to give us their phone number so you could tell them how that oxygen system worked out down there. So be sure and let me know, and we'll post that up on Catfish Weekly's Facebook page for everybody to see when you figure out how it works and how much difference it makes and all that stuff, because I'm quite sure you're going to enjoy that very much.
I'm excited. Learned a lot about it back in Kentucky, and we're taking your guys' technology and your techniques from back east, and we're bringing it out west.
Hey, that's what it's all about, is sharing information and making sure everybody's got the best information they could get. And like Doc said a while ago, that Catfish Conference, to be as successful as it was the first year, from here on out, it's only going to get bigger and better every year.
Blew me away for sure.
Well, thanks again, guys. We've got some other business we're going to take care of, and we appreciate you being on the show, and we'll get you back on here and visit again.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Man, that was some great information them guys shared with us. That deal with that waist sling is just too cool. To zip tie that top of it together, put an anchor on the bottom of it, lower it down in there. That's I honestly believe the problems that people have with decoy bags is they don't sink. They stay up on the top of the water, and those fish don't stay wet, and they don't get oxygen. Therefore, they die. Now, if somebody had actually lowered something or put a brick in there, whatever, to lower them down, they would have probably been better off to do that. But the fish won't swim down, and it hits the bottom of that decoy bag, it stops. Therefore, it doesn't get enough water to survive, and I think that's the problem with decoy bags. But that deal with that waist sling, that's a great idea, and I'm so glad it works for them guys out there.
Yeah, I'm wondering if they get in the drift, and if that's still going to work. You know, if the fish is being pulled backwards.
I don't know about that.
I think you'd have to be sitting perfectly still for that to work.
Yeah, I don't. Every time that I ever forgot to drag up a fish and moved it, even with the trolling motor, they didn't survive very long.
No, you have not done that. Tell me.
I want to tell you what I done it on, Doc. It wasn't catfish. I'll tell you right quick. Cindy and I have a really good old friend, older guy. His name is Billy Ray, and Bill lived out outside of Springfield, Missouri. We go crappie fishing, and of course I worked all day, and he was at the shop most of the time. We go out there and we crappie fish till, I don't know, midnight or 1 or 2 in the morning. We get ready to go in, and I can't tell you how many times old Bill would forget to bring the basket in. So when you get back, all the fish was dead, and 2 or 3 times the basket and everything was gone. So we caught all the fish for nothing. Now, this was several years ago, but we would sit out there and have a few beverages and have a really good time, and he was just such a great friend to have. And but yeah, I have done that in them baskets with crappie, and they're always dead. I mean, every time. They never survive. You know, I want to, before we get to closing statements, I want to mention that, Doc, you guys had a really good day. Finished, what was it, 7th in a tournament you was in over the weekend?
Yeah, at Rocky Fork Lake.
Man, that's outstanding. Good day. And you know, you can talk about them channel cat them guys caught, but you know, 11 fish, 17 over 11 pounds or something. That's unbelievable.
Had 17 channels over 11 pounds.
Man, that's outstanding.
50 pounds won the tournament. Vince puts that tournament on. It's a spring tournament. It's getting bigger and bigger every year. It's a lake here in Ohio that is well known for having big channels, and a lot of guys look forward to that tournament. I think he had 2, maybe 3 of them last year, and it's a lot of guys fish hard on that lake. It's an outstanding lake.
Oh, it is. That's some really good numbers. I want to give a shout out to Craig Shoemate and his dad Rudy. They won the Twisted Cat Outdoor Tournament up here in Lexington, Missouri this weekend. Good job, fellas. I never did catch what that fish weighs, but it had to be in the upper 60s. It was a really great fish. Pretty tough entries. From what I've heard, the fishing was pretty tough, and I'm not sure how many entries they had, but I understand that it was pretty tough, and to catch a fish like that in tough conditions, that's really good. And Craig's dad had just bought a new Sea Ark, so that's the way to take care of them boats. Take them out for the first time, jump in the water, and win you a tournament. And you're good right to go, man. That never happens to me, but I'm glad it happened to them. That's a good job, fellas. Chuck, what do you got for closing statements tonight?
Yeah, I just want to congratulate Aaron Churchwell and Cody Haynes. They won the tournament on Lay Lake this weekend. The Hill Jacks come up from the Phoenix City, Columbus area, and they did a little pre-tournament for the Cabela's this coming weekend for the Super, and them guys got it done on a very tough bite. The big fish was a 42-pound flathead somewhere in that area. I don't know the exact weight, but some guy in a John boat, the dreaded John boat, showed up and took big fish. But them guys, that Aaron, he's being a force to reckon with. Whatever tournament he shows up at, he's getting up there, and he's going to really be somebody to look out for here. In the Southeast on these Southeast tournaments. He's got a really good attitude, and I'm really impressed with him. He's somebody that's going to be very impressive. We got that Cabela Super event coming up Friday, Saturday this week. So as soon as I get off of this, that's going to be my main focus the rest of the week. So I probably won't see anybody on Facebook or anything. I'm going to have to figure out how to catch them boogers. Saturday, the bite was so rough we couldn't even pre-fish. We're back at ground zero. We spent a day fishing and still don't know what we're going to do.
That happens.
I mean, it's so rough. We got 2 fish in the boat doing 2 different things. We mostly, did a lot of scouting and stuff. We went to different part of the river that we're not used to, that's what we vowed to do this year. We're not going to do any honey hole fish, and even if it's places that we know we can catch big fish, we're going to fish our local events just like they're out-of-town events. We're going to go to new parts of the river, and we're going to earn it. We're going to try to use our skill, find them in the section of rivers we choose, and see how we can do that way. That's all I got, Lyle. And what you got, Doc?
Well, I'm going to, this is my first night on the show, and I've kind of come up with a few things to do. at the end like we're doing now. We're going to have a, I'm going to call it Doc's Tips and Tricks. And I don't know how well this is going to work out because I'm still getting used, trying to get used to this camera. But here in Ohio, the skipjacks are just now probably starting to run. They'll start really heavy in about mid-April. I know I've gotten reports that they're starting to come in on the Tennessee River and stuff like that. And a lot of people, you know, they want to get in there and they want to catch their skipjacks and, you know, get to fishing. A couple of things that I really like to use are these Foley spoons. Get those at Bottom Dwellers. That's real popular, along with crappie jigs. And one of the things that I've done over the last couple of years is, you know, you can have all that kind of stuff all tied up and ready to go, and then when you bring it out, it ends up in my hands. It ends up being a big mess. So I'm spending time trying to get this thing untangled. And what I've come up with now is I take about a 20-pound leader, and just like this, and about 3 feet long, and all you do is take the end and you loop it over, and then you tie an overhand knot right on that. Just give me a second here. Still learning how to do this on a camera, just like that. So what you end up with is a loop. Now what you can do is go about 18 inches above that, do it again, tie another overhand knot.
Hold it up just a little bit, Doc.
All right, hang on a minute. Yeah, like I say, I'm still using it. So that's what there's what you got right there. You end up having a series of like 2 or 3, whatever you want. Now, what this does is it allows you to take that Foley spoon and you bring it through the eye right there, pass it through the eye, and then take the Foley spoon and just bring it in there and cinch that down. Now, that ends up being a quick disconnect. If you got to change colors, you have to change colors, all you have to do is undo it again and put the next one on there. The other thing it does is you put one on the very end of the line, and that allows you to adjust your weight, the size of your weight. So the weight can be down at the bottom, and then you got 2 Foley spoons that are sitting here hanging off your main line, and they're sitting there fluttering in the current. It can be used from the bank, but it's more effective in a boat, because a lot of times I'll be out in the boat and I'll just drop it straight down, and then I just start jigging it out, or I'll throw it out behind the boat and let it, you know, swing into the current. But that's a tip for the day, and hope that works out for somebody. You can do it with crappie jigs and stuff like that, but it allows you to change the colors, because we know how fanatical those silver ghosts of the river get. You know, they're smacking pink heads, then they switch to orange, and then they switch to dark. Chuck was saying earlier that the blue Foley spoon is a real hot ticket. I didn't know that. I know it now, though. And so does everybody else.
Well, that's what tips and tricks is all about, man.
That's right. We're gonna try to share as much information every week as we can. And Lyle and Chuck, I appreciate you guys asking me to be on the show. Yeah, I'm real happy about that. I hope everybody out there is thrilled about it as much as I am.
Well, we are very excited to have you on here, and you know, we had talked about having the third person on numerous times, and really we thought we was doing getting along just fine, and I guess we was, but it's amazing how much easier it is to come up with the right questions. With like tonight with those guys, you asked them questions that I know that I never thought about. Don't know if Chuck had thought about some of them or not, but it just makes it complete. And for all you guys that have asked we do miss Chris on the show. We really do. Chris was a good asset to the show, and it's a shame things didn't work out. But Doc has got so much knowledge. It's going to be great to have him on here. And one of these days he's going to retire, and he'll have lots of time to fish and talk about it. Then he can tell us all about all them secrets. It won't just be the little nitpick stuff. It'll be the good stuff.
Oh, yeah, having you know, 3 people is also great because there's been plenty of times that me or Lyle, neither one, needed to be on the show. There was family things that's going on that we neglected because of the show. Now we can have those. We've got a way that we can have our priorities straight and take care of those family things. You know, and there's still 2 people to do the show while we have those priorities taken care of.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Go ahead.
Yeah, in 2 weeks I'm going to be in Kingston, Tennessee, and I'm going to try to do it from my laptop. See how I'm going to take the camera with me and see if I can get on the show using my laptop. So
yeah, find a good place that's got a good 4G signal. I use 4G every week. I'm on 4G right now, and as long as you can find a good signal, it'll stream awesome.
That's great. Well, we're going to enjoy having you on here. I know everybody's going to love the tips and tricks segments, but just to have the third person on here, like Chuck said, there's been a number of times that we both should have done something, we didn't, or you know, storms move in. So, you know, if a storm hits and I can't broadcast, and you guys can start to show up and you can go on, and if something comes up, one of you guys will be still got 2, so we'll be fine. And we're going to continue to try to get some of the best quality guests and speakers on here with us that we can get. We've got a whole bunch of guys lined up. I'm looking for my calendar. I can't reach it right now, but we're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to keep things going and keep it as good for you as we possibly can. I would like to mention that Twisted Cat Outdoors next tournament will be April the 24th at Canton, Missouri. That's going to be the Jack and Jill tournament. You must have 1 man, 1 woman in the boat. Can be your daughter, it can be your wife, it can be your girlfriend, and the ladies, if you got the boat, just drag out some guy off the street. Don't make no difference. Just come on down. It's a $100 entry fee. It will be a great time. That area is not known for giant catfish. They have some really good channel cat, and there is some good blues up there, but sometimes they're a little tough to work with, but they can be caught. I would encourage everybody that can get up there to come up. There'll be an added money tournament. I haven't got the specifications on that yet, but as soon as I get them from Alex, I will let you guys know. That we usually fill that motel in Canton, so be sure to get a hold of Alex Nagy and find out about the hotel information, because there's not a lot of places to stay out there, but if for you gamblers, there is a casino not too far away. They sponsored the first Jack and Jill tournament we had, and it is a great time. We sat around outside a motel room and shoot the breeze and have beverages till late, and way past when we all should have been in bed, but you know, that's kind of how them things go. But it'll be a great time, and it's a really good tournament. So if you get a chance, come on over and join us for that. Chuck, I see you got your little buddy there with you.
Yeah, Berkeley.
Berkeley.
Yep, he's my fishing buddy. He'll be a year old April 8th, so he hasn't been able to enjoy the boat too much, but his year is coming. So it's his first year of fishing, so he's going to start off right. He loves skipjack. I have to beat him off of it, and he tries to eat all my bait. So I got to figure something out.
That's outstanding. Well, I want to thank Bobby Wright and Bill Reno again for being on the show with us. It was a great time with them guys, and we'll be looking forward to seeing a lot more of them in the times to come, because I'm very interested in their fishing and tournament stuff they have out there in the winter. I think that might be a trip we might have to make one of these days, because it sounds like a great time. They catch some great flatheads out there.
Oh, yeah.
They really. Yeah, they're just giants. For Doc Lange and Chuck Davison, I'm Lyle Stokes. Thanks for watching Catfish Weekly. See you next Monday night at 7 o'clock.